Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life that expose who we are, not in the titles we carry or the suits we wear, but in how we treat those we believe have nothing to offer us. I want to take you into one of those moments, a room filled with billion-dollar decisions, high-ranking executives and egos too big to hear the whispers of truth. And then, a janitor spoke, and everything changed. Let me walk you through 5 key lessons from this moment, not just about business, but about leadership, humility, and the hidden power of those we overlook. The CEO was in crisis. The Chinese delegation had arrived early. His translator was delayed. Billions of dollars, years of negotiations, and the company's global future all hung in the balance. And yet, not a single person in that high-rise boardroom could bridge the language gap. Panic didn't knock, it barged in. Executives exchanged nervous glances, beads of sweat gathered on foreheads, and silence grew louder than any voice could. Power, for all its suits and titles, had suddenly become useless. Then, out of nowhere, came a voice calm, steady, and unexpected. A janitor, young, black, and invisible to most until that moment, cleared his throat and said, "Sir, I speak Mandarin." The room froze. Every face turned. No one had noticed him before, but now he held all the power. You see, skill doesn't wear a nameplate. It doesn't need a private office or a corner view. It doesn't come dressed in Armani or brag through LinkedIn profiles. Real skill is born in silence, in hours spent grinding when no one is watching. That janitor had been mopping floors through the night and studying language tapes by morning. While others brushed past him without a second glance, he was mastering the very thing they would all come to desperately need. In that moment, he didn't need permission to lead. He stepped forward because preparation had met opportunity. The room, once ruled by titles, was now being steered by talent. He didn't demand respect, he commanded it, not because of who he was on paper, but because of what he had become in practice. In crisis, titles fail. Skill speaks, and that day, the janitor's voice echoed louder than every title combined. Crisis doesn't build character, it reveals it. In those split seconds where pressure peaks and uncertainty reigns, who we really are comes to the surface. That's what happened in that boardroom. The CEO, a man used to commanding rooms and controlling outcomes, suddenly found himself powerless. His polished title, designer suit, and executive status meant nothing in the face of a language barrier he couldn't cross. The Chinese delegation sat across from him, waiting. Billions of dollars hung in the balance, and yet, his fear wasn't just about losing the deal, it was about losing control. His authority evaporated, and what remained was not strength, but desperation. He wasn't the man people thought he was, not in that moment, but then came the janitor, quiet, overlooked, invisible to most. He didn't walk in with a resume or a reputation, he walked in with readiness. He had no obligation to help, no invitation to speak, and yet when chaos cracked the walls of certainty, he stepped forward, calm, clear, steady, because preparation doesn't need applause, it needs discipline. And he had spent years preparing in silence, not for recognition but for readiness. He didn't look for validation, he offered value, he didn't ask for permission, he provided a path. In that moment, leadership didn't belong to the one with the highest rank, it belonged to the one who brought peace into a storm. It wasn't his title that gave him power, it was his character, because true leadership is tested not when things are easy, but when everything falls apart. And when it did, the world saw who was really in charge. Not the man with the corner office, but the one with the courage to act when it mattered most. Respect isn't earned in boardrooms filled with titles and polished suits. It's earned in raw, unrehearsed moments, moments of truth that reveal who actually holds the weight when pressure tightens its grip. When the janitor spoke, the room cracked with laughter. It wasn't the words he used that triggered it. It was the assumption that someone dressed in coveralls could offer anything of value in a high-stakes negotiation. The disbelief wasn't rooted in his ability. It was rooted in how people see worth. We've been trained to associate intelligence with appearance, authority with attire, and value with status. That's the flaw. We confuse visibility with value. The more someone blends into the background, the more we assume they have nothing to contribute. But wisdom doesn't shout. It walks quietly, patiently waiting for its moment to be seen. And when that moment came, when the room was sinking into panic, when billions of dollars were on the line, he didn't offer excuses. He offered a solution. He didn't just translate Mandarin into English. He translated cultural tension into mutual understanding. He read the unspoken cues, the subtle gestures, the tone that could make or break a deal. And as the Chinese delegation began to nod, to smile, to respond, the power in the room shifted. Eyes turned toward him. Silence transformed into attention. The same executives who mocked him seconds ago now hung on his every word. Because he didn't earn respect by talking about what he could do. He earned it by doing it, right when it mattered most. Respect, in that moment, became something deeper than hierarchy. It wasn't given because of his title. It was granted because of his timing, his skill, and his grace under pressure. He didn't just change the outcome. He changed the perception of what leadership can look like. Preparation is the silent equalizer that turns ordinary into extraordinary. It doesn't announce itself with noise or demand attention. It builds slowly, in the quiet hours when no one is watching. That janitor wasn't just in the right place at the right time. He had been preparing for a moment no one else saw coming. While the world slept, he studied. While others scrolled through distractions, he memorized vocabulary, practiced tone, and immersed himself in a culture he wasn't born into. His mop wasn't just a tool, it was a disguise. Beneath the surface stood a man equipped with knowledge, patience, and the discipline to endure being overlooked. Preparation doesn't pay instantly. There are no cheering crowds, no promotions, no standing ovations when you're grinding in silence. But it's there, layering your confidence, shaping your skill, readying you for the moment when the unthinkable happens, and it always does. There will come a time when titles lose their power and appearances fail. That's when preparation speaks. That's when the room turns to the one who's steady, informed, and capable. Not because of a nameplate on a door, but because they invested in the invisible work. Many people wait for opportunity. They wait to be chosen, noticed, or invited, but the prepared don't wait. They train. They understand that the reward isn't the moment itself. It's being ready when it arrives. When the translator didn't show up, panic set in. Billions were on the line. The boardroom was full of power, but empty of solutions. And then the janitor stood up. Not with bravado, but with calm. Because he didn't need the world to believe in him. He had already done the work. He had earned the right to rise, and rise he did not from luck, but from relentless preparation. We live in a world obsessed with surface, pedigree, prestige, appearances. People cling to labels like armor, the school they went to, the title they carry, the size of their house, or the brand of their watch. But real value doesn't come from credentials. It comes from character. The world isn't powered by CEO alone. It's powered by janitors who unlock buildings before dawn, by teachers who buy supplies from their own pockets, by nurses who hold hands in silence while lives hang in the balance. It's powered by people who show up every day tired, unseen, uncelebrated, but never unimportant. Greatness doesn't always arrive in tailored suits or sit in corner offices. Sometimes it wears scrubs. Sometimes it holds a wrench. Sometimes it pushes a mop down an empty hallway while everyone else has gone home. And often it speaks softly. It listens closely. It prepares quietly. The kid reading language books on his break might become the one who bridges nations tomorrow. The woman running numbers late at night in the back office might be the only one who sees the flaw in the system before everything crashes. So I ask you this, when the lights flicker and everything begins to unravel, who do you look to? Do you scramble for titles and rank? Or do you search for steady hands and ready minds? Because in the chaos, the title means nothing. What matters is who's calm, who's capable, who's prepared. And when someone rises from the shadows, someone you've never noticed before, will you judge them by their clothes or listen to the strength in their voice? Because real leadership doesn't always announce itself. It doesn't need permission. It steps forward quietly, boldly, and reminds us that greatness can come from anywhere, and often does.